Hi, and welcome back to my shop. I'm at the point now in my screen door project where I can start to wrap things up. I've got 3 coats of finish now, an outdoor grade finish, on the door. And again, I've pre-finished the door before putting the screen in because it's a whole lot easier to apply the finish without having to cut around the screen. And I've also pre-finished my trim pieces that are gonna essentially just cover up the staples that will hold the screen in place. So on this episode, I'm just going to be putting the screen in, applying these pieces of trim, and then putting the hinges on, and then I'll be able to actually hang the door. I'm getting started now on tacking in the screening. It's actually a fairly straightforward process. I've already got the first 3 panes done and have fairly tight netting going on there. And really I think the trick for me in this process is I'm using my electric stapler, which I used in a media cabinet, speaker cabinet that I did for a client in the past. Because this is white oak, it's a very dense material. I actually tried using just a hand-operated staple gun, and it couldn't even drive the staples halfway into the material. And because I am putting that trim material in here, I need those staples to lie as flat as possible. So I'll show you next how I'm actually tacking in the screening. Each time I need to cut a new piece, I'm squaring off, and it's pretty easy to square off the screening because it kind of comes equipped with a nice grid. So that's pretty easy to do. But all I do is I just lay the screening, and this is fiberglass screen rather than metal screen. It's a lot easier to work with, and it won't dent or ding through the process. So I just get one of the corners there, one of those square corners in first, and then I just lay my first staple right in that corner. Next, I pull the screen tight on the top side, as tight as I can, and just keeping that nice and straight, and put my next staple in. Then I just secure it in on that edge, and then I'm going to take that one straight edge I have and start to stretch it because I want this to be nice and tight. And because I've got all the staples in here already, that gives me a nice secure anchor point so I don't have to worry about it pulling the staple out. So now I've essentially got 2 of my straight edges anchored in and stretched out as much as possible. So then I sort of just repeat the process on the other side, and just pulling the screening tight as I go along. All right, now that I've got the screen all nice and tacked in, I got a nice, I could probably bounce a quarter off that. Just take my razor knife and run it right along that inside edge of the rabbet. And that's all there is to it. Now that I have all the screening in place, I'm going back and just taking the pieces of trim that I pre-cut and pre-finished, and I'll just lay it in there, make a mark where I need the other miter to go, and then I'll just lay all these pieces in place, and then I'll probably just tack them in place right here rather than trying to move this around, because I don't want to lose track of which piece goes where. That would be just kind of a hassle. So I just have to go out, lay them all out, and drive them home. Now that I've got all of the trim pieces cut and laid out, this is actually starting to look like a finished screen door. So all I'm going to do is use a pin nailer with 3/4 inch pins in it. And I'm just gonna put a couple of tacks on each of these pieces of trim. I don't wanna nail the heck out of this thing because if I ever do need to replace any of the screen, I wanna be able to fairly easily pry these back out. I'm also gonna keep my last pin at least an inch or two away from each corner. That way it'll be easier to actually pry these out and I won't have them too snug in the corners if, again, I do have to replace the screen at some point. Now I've just flipped the door back over and I'm going to apply the hardware to the door side. Now I just need to screw the hinges into the door frame. Let's see how that works. It's a nice fit. So now all I really have to do is install my closing hardware as well as my pulls on both sides of the door. But for all intents and purposes, the construction of the door itself is complete. I do really like how it came out where I have this pattern in the squares that matches my front door. So this piece will look like it came with the original house. And the material that I ended up using happens to match the flooring on this floor of the house as well. So that's the beauty of being able to build a custom door. I think the stock and the hardware for this project cost me less than $150. And I end up with a screen door that's custom sized for the frame that I have and is matched to work with the interior of my house. So yeah, it was a little bit of work, but I'm proud of being able to construct this myself and have it match the rest of my house.